In 2014, Flight MH370 disappeared from air traffic control radar while flying over the ocean. Authorities attempted to establish contact with the aircraft for hours, but received no response. Had the aircraft crashed? Despite extensive searches near the last known location, not a single piece of wreckage was recovered. So, where did it go? Days turned into years, but that plane was never seen again. Even today, over a decade later, the fate of MH370 remains unknown. The relatives of the passengers who lost their lives never got to know what their loved ones went through in their final moments. Despite multinational efforts, the aircraft was never being located. Last year, a company called Ocean Infinity claimed they could finally find that plane with their new technology. They are so confident in their research that they said they wouldn't charge a dime unless they actually find MH370. But with all the effort from various countries over 12 years without success, how can Ocean Infinity be so sure they can find it? What type of technology does Ocean Infinity possess? And how exactly does it work? How can it potentially locate MH370? Let's break it all down in detail in today's video. First of all, let's quickly discuss the key points that will help us understand this case. March 8, 2014, Kuala Lumpur International Airport, Malaysia. At 12:41 AM, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 took off with 239 passengers on board. Heading to Beijing Capital International Airport in China. The flight was scheduled to last around 5 hours, but additional fuel was loaded, enabling the aircraft to remain airborne for approximately 7.5 hours. Later, the presence of extra fuel complicated the investigation significantly. Approximately 20 minutes after takeoff, the aircraft reached cruising altitude of 35,000 feet and entered airspace over the South China Sea. Up until then, they had been in touch with Malaysian ATC. To continue towards its destination, the aircraft was expected to transition into Vietnamese airspace and establish communication with Vietnam ATC. After the standoff handoff and exchange of goodnight, radio communication was terminated. Shortly after the communication ended, the aircraft's transponder was manually deactivated. With the transponder off, air traffic control lost the ability to track the aircraft's precise position. After several hours without contact with MH370, search and rescue operations were initiated. Interestingly, while global authorities believed the aircraft had crashed into the ocean and rescue teams were deployed, the aircraft was reportedly still airborne. It had not crashed at that point. Let's move forward to the key developments. Normally, when a plane goes down in the ocean, the rescue team looks at the last known location because that's usually where it crashed. However, MH370's case deviated from standard scenarios. For nearly 4 days, the search team secured the last known location, but they didn't find a single piece of the plane. They weren't lucky because the place they were searching for wasn't where the plane actually crashed. Military radar data later indicated the aircraft had veered westward toward the Indian maritime boundary. Military personnel detected the aircraft on radar, but as monitoring civilian flights isn't their primary responsibility, they did not act on it. The pilot appeared to have diverted the aircraft to a remote location to avoid detection, but inadvertently crossed military radar coverage. By the time the investigators realized, 4 days later, that the initial search area was incorrect, it was already too late. Any buoyant debris had likely drifted far away from the crash site, making recovery efforts nearly impossible. The remaining non-buoyant wreckage is believed to have sunk deep into the ocean during that period, and that's how MH370 completely disappeared. Years went by, but nothing about the plane turned up. Nobody really knew what happened. Search teams were essentially operating without direction, relying on speculation. In reality, investigators had no concrete leads regarding the aircraft's final location. From 2014 to 2017, they searched non-stop, covering almost 15,000 square kilometers. But it was a failed mission. In 2018, Ocean Infinity conducted a 3-month search, which ended unsuccessfully, costing approximately $150 million. Military radar, satellite data, and signals from the engine manufacturer. The plane was searched at all the given locations, but there was no trace of it. In 2025, renewed hope emerged with advanced methods to locate MH370. To search for this plane, they relied on the WSPR net, which stands for Weak Signal Propagation Reporting. So, what is WSPR and how can it assist in locating the aircraft after all these years? Let's break it down. The WSPR radio network is spread all over the world, not just in cities, but also in desolate seas. To understand it better, imagine a section of the ocean transmitting radio signals, which are then received by a receiver on the other end. However, do these signals retain the same strength upon reaching the receiver? Not really. They get weaker along the way. Just like when you tune in a radio station, it sounds crystal clear at first, but as you move further away, you start to hear a bit of noise. That noise comes up because of the weakening signals. The signal must traverse various obstructions such as buildings, vehicles, and natural terrain to reach the receiver. All these objects can disturb the radio signal. Take MH370 for instance. When the plane sneaked into the Indian Ocean by changing directions, even if no radar picked it up, it still must have crossed and disrupted a lot of radio signals. If researchers can determine when and where MH370 disrupted specific radio transmissions, they may be able to reconstruct the aircraft's flight path and pinpoint the likely crash site. A researcher named Richard Godfrey had been studying these signals for the past few years. Richard says that if we use the pings received by satellites to pinpoint the location and simultaneously study the radio signals in that area to see if they were disturbed by MH370, we could easily locate the plane. The satellite pings indicate the aircraft's last known location, while radio signal disturbances can help us determine its subsequent flight direction. Here we figure out the radio signals. But what's this ping all about? Well, just like our phones try to connect to the network tower, the plane's engine sends out an electrical signal at regular intervals. This signal, known as a ping, is received by the engine's manufacturer to monitor performance. The engine of MH370 transmitted 7 pings to the satellite, with the final signal sent at 8:19 am. After that, no further signals were transmitted. This means that the plane was flying safely until 8:19 am. That's why I mentioned at the start of the video that when they were searching for the plane around 2-3 am, they thought it had disappeared from the radar and might have crashed. But the plane was actually still flying at that time. The engine's communication system was not intended for aircraft tracking, which is why the ping data could not precisely determine the aircraft's coordinates. But it did create a huge arc. The ping data suggested the aircraft traveled along a wide arc, but the origin point remained unknown. The twist in the story came when they started connecting this arc to radio signals. MH370 likely traversed this arc, disturbing radio signals along its path. By following that disrupted signal, we could track down the crash location of MH370. Ocean Infinity plans to resume the search using this integrated WSPR and satellite ping methodology. but the operation has been paused because of bad weather. Ocean Infinity has acquired the full WSPR dataset recorded on March 8, 2014. Richard Godfrey claims he has even pinpointed the crash location, saying the plane went down within a 30-kilometer radius of that spot. Meanwhile, Ocean Infinity estimates the wreckage may lie within a 15,000 square kilometer area. The search for MH370 is on hold due to the weather, but they plan to resume it later this year. This plane has never been searched in such a precise location before. Ocean Infinity is so confident in their theory that they have committed to a success-based payment, despite previously spending $150 million. What do you guys think about this whole concept? The concept may seem complex, so this explanation has been simplified for broader understanding. For now, that's all for this video.